Hey there, my name's Curtis Lucas and you're watching Empire Building. So we got to get right into this because some big news came out and sent Bitcoin's price surging. So this was the first post that I was able to find on this when I went looking for what was sending Bitcoin's price so much higher. Breaking: Treasury leaks Secretary Yellen's press release on Biden's Bitcoin executive summary. This post only has reference to some screenshots. It's not the complete article or the complete letter. And Bitcoin Magazine also saying, leaked: Yellen on Biden's Bitcoin executive order. Policy will result in substantial benefits for the nation. And that's them quoting. They did include a link to the actual letter. And this is official. This is from the Treasury website. This is official government website. This is the actual letter, and you can see it is dated March 9th. And it is currently, as I'm recording this, March 8th. So I guess that's where people are suggesting that the letter was leaked. However, I don't know if you can really leak something if it's coming from a government website. For all we know, that's just a typo on the date. But either way, it is here. We have yet to see this executive order get signed, but this is basically a summary by Janet Yellen on that executive order, which she has obviously seen. U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Janet L. Yellen released the following statement on President Biden's executive order on digital assets. President Biden's historic executive order calls for a coordinated and comprehensive approach to digital asset policy. This approach will support responsible innovation that could result in substantial benefit for the nation, consumers, and businesses. It will also address risks related to illicit finance, protecting consumers and investors and preventing threats to the financial system and broader economy. Under the executive order, Treasury will partner with interagency colleagues to produce a report on the future of money and payment systems. We'll also convene the Financial Stability Oversight Council to evaluate the potential financial stability risks of digital assets and assess whether appropriate safeguards are in place. And because the questions raised by digital assets have important cross-border dimensions, we'll work with our international partners to promote robust standards and a level playing field. This letter is not really long, so we'll just finish the entire thing. This work will complement ongoing efforts by Treasury. Already, the department has worked with the President's Working Group on Financial Markets, the FDIC and the OCC, to study one particular kind of digital asset, stablecoins, and make recommendations. Under the executive order, Treasury and interagency partners will build upon the recently published national risk assessments, which identify key illicit financing risks associated with digital assets. As we take on this important work, we'll be guided by consumer and investor protection groups, market participants, and other leading experts. Treasury will work to promote fairer, more inclusive, and more efficient financial system, while building on our ongoing work to counter illicit finance and prevent risks to the financial stability and national security. So obviously the market's response to this was, obviously this was either viewed as incredibly bullish by those who originally read it, or they were expecting something far worse, generally speaking. I don't really know which is which, but what does this mean for where we're headed next? For starters, let's just talk about the content of the letter. I didn't see anything in that letter that was particularly shocking or surprising. It's pretty much what I would have expected to hear from it. So I have a hard time understanding why anybody would have expecting something worse. But they also don't actually state anything specific in it, just what we already knew. They were going to work on developing regulations and set guidelines, which is good. This is what the market needs so that institutional players, institutional participants have a better idea of what to expect from regulations. But it also makes it abundantly clear that the government, as we know, does not necessarily share the same principles that are widely accepted by the majority of the early adopters in this space. So it remains to be seen how this is going to be viewed as it gets digested over the coming days and weeks. But obviously there's no denying that the market likes what it's hearing right now. And let's face it, it wasn't so long ago that we were basically laughed at. And shortly after that, we're basically ignored for years as being a joke.
You think we'll be talking about Bitcoin in 10 years from now?
I won't be talking about Bitcoin in 10 years, I can assure you that.
But you might be in at least 6 years as Treasury Secretary, as you just said.
Exactly. I would bet even in 5 or 6 years, I'm no longer talking about Bitcoin as Treasury Secretary. I'll have other priorities.
You'll be loaded up on Bitcoin and a gazillionaire.
I can assure you I will personally not be loaded up on Bitcoin.
Okay. Never say never.
And now we've reached executive order status. I think the only thing that would have made this move even better for Bitcoin would be if they had, if she had mentioned Bitcoin by name. But we also need to remember that there are multiple steps to this. We still haven't reached the part where they fight us yet. Now, I'm definitely not saying that all of this is going to be somehow bad news. I'm simply saying that the market hasn't fully digested what any of this means, and they haven't really stated anything specific. So while this is good news, and it's definitely a step in the right direction, we don't know what's going to become of all of this quite yet. So I would be very, very careful in choosing this as the reversal signal. It's possible, which is why you always have to stay invested, because something like this can happen out of nowhere and change everything. But the reality is we're still facing a lot of uncertainty in the market in general. What I will point out is that when you have a look at these charts, Bitcoin had a substantial move here, but if we have a look at the NASDAQ, not so much. Obviously the markets in general are still fearful, and this move was definitely predominantly led by Bitcoin. Ethereum is up about 5.5%. And many of the other altcoins are also up, but nothing substantially. This was definitely a Bitcoin-led move, and it's obviously something that is widely regarded as a positive for Bitcoin itself. But is it enough to reverse this trend that we've been in? I am not so confident on that. So for me personally, I'm not making any changes based on this sudden change in momentum. If we have a look again at the, say, daily chart and just get a feel for where we are in this, if we can break the 45,000, if we can get above that, close above it, then I'd be thinking, okay, there's a chance that we definitely have made a bottom. But again, I don't necessarily see that being the case based solely on this executive order, which doesn't change a whole lot about the environment that we're operating in. These committees and things that they've formed, these councils, it's going to take a long time. We're talking years before you actually see any legitimate regulation that gets passed as a result of this. Be lucky to see it happen in Biden's existing term, considering there's a pretty good chance they're going to lose the Senate in the second term anyways. It remains to be seen. We'll see how things develop. Me personally, I am very much hoping to see meaningful regulation. It will go a very, very long way to making institutions more comfortable and bring even more legitimacy to this space, which, let's face it, that's what this has done. You can't call Bitcoin a joke when the President of the United States feels it necessary to issue executive orders instructing their institutions and these regulatory bodies to take it seriously. Again, you saw in that letter, this approach will support responsible innovation that could result in substantial benefits for the nation, consumers, and businesses. So while some of this regulation may be viewed as positive and some may be viewed as negative, it's still a strong indication that this technology is viewed as valuable and permanent, considering the urgency and the need that they see to make sure that it's properly regulated. I also found it interesting that they obviously found it important that they coordinate with international partners, meaning they realize that within their own jurisdictions, they cannot meaningfully regulate this, which is going to be one of the more interesting and difficult situations for us to deal with, but also for them. I mean, that's where the battle could eventually take place. But we're not there today. There's no reason to be overly panicked about that. So yes, we can just celebrate this for the win that it is. But what do you think? Is this the signal that we've been waiting for to reverse the trend? Could this really take us back to new all-time highs? Do you think this is just another dead cat bounce? Another bull trap? Does the thought of these regulations frighten you? Do they get you excited? Talk about it down in the comments. That's it for this one. Now let's get back to empire building.